If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume two things are true about you. One, you're a music producer. Two, you can stand, as in like on your two legs. If you don't, shout out to you. But do you know how to stand out as a music producer? Bet you didn't think of that one, did you? You probably don't want to sound generic. Why would people want to listen to your music if it sounds like everything else? So today I'm going to give you 4 ways in which you can make your music sound more unique. Now, the first tip is to use samples that no one else uses. This is pretty self-explanatory, so I won't ramble on too much. Now, when looking for vocal samples to add to my music, I like to think of a single word or phrase that comes to my mind when listening to the music. It could be relevant to the vibe of the track or to my life situation at the moment. Okay, so I have this instrumental right here. In this case, the word that came to my mind was avoid. Don't ask me why. And I like to take that word, put it into Google and type a cappella after it. I chose this a cappella right here.
I try to resolve things.
And with this method of looking for vocal samples, you'll often find underrated gems with very low view counts like I did here. I mean, look, this only has 600 views, come on. And don't forget to check the key of the song you're sampling. In this case, the sample was in E minor and my instrumental was in F minor, so I had to transpose the vocals up by 1 semitone. And if the vibe of the vocal sample doesn't really match the vibe of your track, well, you can just try looking for a different word. And there you go, that's how you find unique vocal samples. The second tip is to do your own sound design instead of using presets. And don't get me wrong, presets are great, but none of them were designed to work with your specific pattern. And this is specifically the reason why preset packs sound so great in demo songs, but they never quite live up to the expectations once you get your hands on them. So what I want you to do is create the pattern first and only then design the sound. It's something I got from Julian Earl, you might have heard of him, he's a pretty cool guy. The idea is to work with a very raw, basic sound while creating the pattern, so you focus more on the rhythm and the melody. And once you've got the pattern sounding pretty decent on its own, you only then tailor the sound to fit the pattern as well as you possibly can. Let me show you an example of this in practice. Okay, so Ableton's operator is pretty fun to do this with, so I'm going to be using it today. And I have this pattern right here. Right now I'm using the basic default preset of operator. I don't like improvising, so I already created the patch right here. So what I basically did here was I put the sustain down of the basic wave right here. I increased the attack just a tiny little bit, like so. And I introduced a second wave, a triangle one, at minus 21 dB. I introduced a third wave at minus 24 dB. Then I increased the spread of the sound a little bit. This was the default preset of the operator plugin. And this was my sound after designing it. And also I've then added some effects to make it even more spicy. I've added an auto filter with an LFO. I've added a drum bus and some delay, if you can see it. I don't think you can, but what matters is that it sounds good. Check it out. And that's basically it. To be honest, I have no idea how FM synthesis even works. I just played around until things started sounding good. The only thing in this sound design session that was intentional was turning down the sustain and increasing the attack. I did that because I wanted a more plucky sound, but with some attack to it, because I thought that would sound good with the pattern that I had going on. Apart from that, it was all press and guess. And with this approach to creating the sounds to complement your pattern, you're bound to sound more unique. Now, you don't have to design every single sound that you use. Using presets is completely fine. Because sometimes, all you need is just that one unique sounding instrument for your track to stand out. Speaking of standing out, my third tip for you is to combine different techniques from your favorite artists and genres. I want you to think of all the music that you listen to and what you love most about it. And I'll give myself as an example. I really like the unsettling, dark vibe of dark techno. I also love the snappy and groovy feel of minimal house drums. So why would I not combine the two in my music? I don't hear many tracks that have the unsettling, mysterious vibe of dark techno, while also having the groovy feel of minimal house. And I'd love to hear more of those. So I try my best to be the change I want to see in the world. Also, don't be afraid to incorporate the different technical music producer techniques from different genres. For example, you can try adding an Avon break to a house track, or I don't know, a polyrhythm to a trap beat. You get the idea. Okay, but where do you get these techniques from? I'm glad you asked, because that's a great transition into our next point, which is to constantly learn new things. That's what you've got to do to stand out. I guarantee that the majority of people do not follow this rule. And trust me, there's always something new to learn. How do you learn new stuff though? Here's a couple ideas for you. Number one, you can remake songs. The idea is to take your favorite song and analyze every single aspect of it, and try to remake every individual element, one at a time, as accurately as you can, to the best of your abilities. I've personally found that I learn something new every single time I remake a song. For example, I got this method of creating bass patterns from remaking Slow It Down by Skin on Skin. Number two, you can take masterclasses. So what genre of music do you usually make, and who's your favorite artist in that genre? You should have a look around and see if they offer masterclasses. And yes, this is mostly a paid option. You have to decide for yourself if it's worth it for you or not. But sometimes you can find free masterclasses. For example, I usually make minimal house, and my favorite artist in that genre is Jizz. And he just so happens to have uploaded a couple of free masterclasses on YouTube. They were in Spanish, though with some auto-generated subtitles, I was able to learn quite a bit from them. For example, I got this technique of creating minimal house steps from Jizz, from watching one of his masterclasses. Speaking of YouTube, method number 3 is learning from YouTube tutorials. Now, with me having a YouTube channel and all that, I might be a little bit biased here, but you'd be surprised with how much you can learn just from watching other people produce. I'll leave you here with a couple of recommendations from me. Underdog Electronic Music School. My favorite videos from Underdog are the ones where he talks about musical concepts and producer theory. Check that out. Julian Earl. I've learned many producer techniques from this guy, and I've actually already mentioned him in this video. So, great guy. Definitely recommend. And the House of Kush. Kush After Hours. He has some of the best mixing advice I've ever heard online. He has a beautiful, soothing voice. I personally learned the most from these channels. I hope you've learned something from mine so far. If you did, leave a like. You should go watch some of their videos now. Or you can watch this video.